Hey guys, it's about that time for another video on the themes of the Gospel of John. So, this is actually going to be a two-part video. We're going to be looking at the I am statements of Jesus. So basically there are 8 different I am statements. Today we're going to be looking at the first, but in order to do that we need to have some background knowledge. In the Old Testament, we read about the story of Exodus, which literally just means like the exit of the people of God, the Jewish people. But prior to that, the book of Genesis is there. And in the book of Genesis, we have Joseph, you know, the guy with like the pretty coat that had been sold into slavery by his brothers and then had eventually come back. Well, Joseph had gained some a good reputation with the people in Egypt. In fact, to the point that like all of Joseph's family came and lived with him, and like they were treated well. All right, so in the first chapter of Exodus, this is a couple hundred years later. So all of Joseph's family that he knew would have died by now. They would have had children, and it says that they like multiplied and they were getting pretty big. Well, in the first chapter, we read that the new king of Egypt did not know Joseph, did not remember Joseph. So he kind of had this distaste in his mouth at this point for the Hebrew people, the Jewish people. So much so that he instituted what is called infanticide over the Jewish people. So anytime a baby was born, one of the Egyptian guards or whatever would come and they would kill that baby because there were too many of them, and they were kind of like nuisances. They were pests to the Egyptians in their eyes. Well, at this point, Moses is born. Moses is kept in his father's household, we're told, for about 3 months. And then after that, they realize that they can't hide him anymore. And knowing that, like, God loved this kid and that God had a plan for him, they took him out, put him in a basket. No, they didn't push him down a river, as we've been taught sometimes, just like willy-nilly, let's hope something good happens to him. No, they took him in a basket and set him in the marsh, in like the banks of the river where Pharaoh's daughter would go and bathe herself. And Pharaoh's daughter came down, bathed herself, saw a baby, went, as most of us do, that's really cute, that's a kid, swept him up, took him in her household, and decided to raise him. So, Moses, this Jewish guy that is basically despised in this nation, is raised in the Egyptian household. So he gains favor. Well, after about 40 years, Moses decides that he wants to see his Jewish brothers. He wants to kind of take care of them a little bit. He wants to know them. So he goes in to their camp, and he sees this Egyptian guy just wailing on this Jewish guy. So Moses thinks, here's my chance. And he walks up, and he ends up whacking the Egyptian guy. And then he buries him, and then he leaves. He comes back later to the Jewish camp, and he sees a Jewish guy wailing on another Jewish guy. And he walks up to him and he says, "What are you guys doing? You're supposed to be brothers. Take care of one another. You shouldn't be against each other." And their response, they kind of in unison turn to him and they go, "Who are you? You think that you're my keeper? You're supposed to take care of me? What are you going to do? You're going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" And that like terrifies Moses. As a 40-year-old grown man, as a coward, he flees and he runs off to the land of Midian. And following this, God hears the Israelites groaning, complaining, hurting because of this yoke of slavery that they are under. And he remembers the promise that he made to Abraham in the book of Genesis. The promise that he said to Abraham was, hey, like, I'll make your descendants so fruitful that they won't be able to be counted. More than there are stars in the sky will your descendants be. You will have more descendants than there are sand on the land. Grains of sand. So like a lot. He remembers that. So the next thing we read is that Moses, while shepherding a flock in Midian, kind of runs across this bush that's burning. And we find out that it's the angel of God in the bush talking to Moses. And to make a long story short, the angel of God tells Moses, "Go back to Egypt and free my people from this slavery. We're taking these guys somewhere else." And Moses, after like complaining for a while, making some excuses, he says, "All right, you're asking a pretty big thing of me, and people are going to question me. So who should I say told me to do this?" And in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, we read the angel of God reply, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent you." So there's a lot of cool explanations for this name. One would be he's basically saying, I am the one who was, who is, and who will be. Another way of understanding it is basically by saying that you can't explain what I am. I'm too big. I'm too good. You cannot encapsulate me in just a name. So there's some other ways that can be interpreted or understood, but as cool as that is, it's not really important for what we're studying now, because remember, we're looking at the I am statements of Jesus. And like I said, there are 8 of them, but we're going to look at the first one right now, and then we'll hit the other 7 next time. So as we're reading about Jesus' life and learning about who he is, we see something crazy. In John chapter 8, verses 48 through 59, we see this interaction between Jesus and some Jews. So, here's the situation. Jesus is being questioned as to who he is. The Jews say, "Are we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and demon-possessed?" Which is like a 1-2 punch of insults. So Jesus kind of responds and explains how dumb that is, explains that like if they really knew God, then they would know him, that they would honor him. And then after that, they move into more of an argument. And Jesus basically says, after they talk about Abraham and about he was like this awesome dude, Jesus kind of explains that like, is verse 56. He says, "Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it, and he was glad." And the Jewish people respond, "You're not even 50 years old. Abraham was hundreds of years ago. How would he have looked forward to you? That doesn't make any sense." And then Jesus responds in a super cool way. 58. Jesus says, "Truly, truly," or "Amen, amen," or "Yes, yes," or like, "Open your eyes, pay attention, this is a big deal. Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am." So it's not that Jesus had like bad grammar, whereas what he should have said is, "Truly, truly, before Abraham was born, I was," or like, I don't know what other grammatic mistake it would be. It's not that Jesus had bad grammar. Jesus is quoting this passage in Exodus 3. He is essentially saying, like, I am God. I am from the Father, but I am God. And the proof's in the pudding that this is what he's saying, because these people that are around him are Jewish folk. They grew up having to memorize sections of the Bible. Like, it's to some degree, some of them had to memorize the entire Old Testament that we have. And what we see is pretty telling. We see a response where these Jewish people pick up rocks and are ready to stone him. And it's not just because he had bad grammar, because they thought he was demon-possessed. It's because in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, we see the law for the Jewish people. And if somebody blasphemed the name of God, then they were to be stoned to death. So these Jewish people recognize that Jesus is saying that he is God. And they're ready to just hammer him because they think that's not right. So this is probably the most clear I am statement in the book of John. But like I said, there are 7 more. And we'll look at them next time. Thanks for watching.